The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
You know, we must be all like medium rare by now. When is this heat going to break? Friday? Yeah, but then it's supposed to go back up again this weekend. You really don't believe in global warming, do you? Yeah, sure. And then we have a cold day in February, and people go, see? Ay. But we persevere, and we move on. I was watching some of the Nats game yesterday, 4 o'clock start. Some hardy souls in the stands, not many of them, but bearing up with the heat and hanging in there. We didn't hear anything about any emergencies, but man, this is a rough period. And usually August is the killer month around here. And we're still a ways away from that. Just remarkable how hot it has been. All right, enough fetching about that. We're going to talk some baseball today. Joe Maddon was on a podcast last week, and he was always a different kind of a thinker when he managed the Cubs to a World Series. He was the one that broke the curse. He was in Tampa. He was with the Angels, and I guess he's in his 70s now. It's unlikely he'll manage again, but he is really a smart guy, a funny guy, and has some ideas about the robo-ump and also player development to the point where we're not having pitchers, used up after 60 pitches. Like, a guy who starts a game should go more than 5 innings, and we'll get to that coming up later this hour. Much more on the NBA today. A lot of NBA stuff swirling around the Danny Hurley contract. I know that's college, but I'll give you some details on that, which, lead me to some thoughts about why he turned down the Lakers. Essentially, it's a $20 million difference, and it's so much different now. Yes, he has a chance to win 3 straight championships, but it used to be if you established yourself in college basketball and got an unbelievable offer to the NBA, you would take it because not only was there going to be more money, but there was the next challenge. And if you got the chance to coach one of the jewel franchises like the Lakers, you would run, not walk to take it. But he turned it down, and we'll get to that. Before we do all that, though, I want to celebrate an anniversary. It was 92 years ago today that the National Football League awarded a franchise to Boston, July 9th, 1932. The owner was George Preston Marshall, who was from Washington, D.C. He did not attempt to get a team in D.C. I guess, Boston being a bigger market or whatever it was, they decided that was the place to be. And the team was named the Boston Braves. And they shared the same field as the Boston Braves baseball team, which later became an issue. The coach was Lud Ray. For 1933, they had a new name and a new place to play. That was Redskins, and they played at Fenway Park, and Lud Ray was replaced by William Lone Star Dietz. And there's been some inaccurate information put out over the years that the team was named the Redskins because Lone Star Dietz was a Native American, which apparently he was not. He just adopted the name. But, you just think about 92 years ago today, and had they stuck with the name Braves, we wouldn't be in all this Michigas now, Commanders, Washington football team. Some people want to go back to the Redskins, the whole thing. It all started 92 years ago today. The other thing that I would point out about this is that the franchise was awarded July 9th. Less than 3 months later, they played their first game. Now, when they have expansion teams that are announced these days, I think it's a 2-year run-up, might even be a 3-year run-up. The last team to come in was the Cleveland Browns. And, it was the Houston Texans in 2002. The Browns came the expansion Browns, that's what they were really, the expansion Browns, because the Browns had become the Baltimore Ravens that already won a Super Bowl. So Cleveland got their team replaced with an expansion team, and then that left an uneven number of teams at 31. They went to 32 when the Houston Texans became a franchise. I don't know at what point, I should have looked this up, but I think it was at least 2 years, maybe 3 years before And these were the early days of the NFL where you can award a franchise in July and have them playing games in October. Just remarkable. And here's how crazy the league was in those days. The team that won the championship played 14 games. That was the Chicago Bears. They finished 7-1-6. There were no playoffs in those days. Green Bay finished second, though they had 3 more wins. They were 10-3-1, but because they had 3 losses and the Bears only had 1, the Bears were the champions with 6 ties. Nobody in those days said, well, you got to figure out a way not to have ties. It wasn't until 1974 that we went to the overtime. The Portsmouth Spartans finished third at 6-2-4. The Braves were 4-4-2. The New York Giants were 4-6-2. The Brooklyn Dodgers, yes, there was a Brooklyn Dodgers baseball team. They finished 3-9. The Chicago Cardinals finished 2-6-2. And the Staten Island Stapletons finished 2-7-3. And yes, if you're noticing that different teams played a different number of games, that's how primitive things were back in 1932. And the league itself was struggling in those days. You know, it was not on solid footing, even though it had been around for 12 years. College football was the king there, and Marshall found it tough sledding in Boston, even though he had gone to Fenway Park. He had changed the name of the team. They were a good team. They played in the 1936 NFL championship game, lost to Green Bay 21-6, and Marshall said, that's enough. Moving home, took the team to Washington, D.C., drafted Sammy Baugh, played at Griffith Stadium, and the rest, as they say, is history. They won the championship that first year. They beat the Giants in the opener 13-3 and earned the division title with a win over the Giants 49-14. So all that goes back to this day in 1932. And, you know, if they'd have come up with a name that was, you know, not ultimately offensive as it was a year later with Redskins, where would we be right now? Where would we be? And just to give you an idea of how things have changed in the way that franchises come in and the run-up that they have, it was, I think, at least 2 years before in 1995 we had the Carolina Panthers and the Jacksonville Jaguars come in. The Jaguars right away named Dom Capers as the head coach. Carolina wanted to hire the newly retired Joe Gibbs. Remember, Gibbs had left in March of 1993, saying that, you know, he had some health issues and things that he was dealing with. Plus, he'd been successful with NASCAR already. He had won the Daytona 500. And so he left, and he was moving his operation to Charlotte, and that's when the Panthers got interested. He was only 52 years old, remember, when he retired the first time. And Charlotte contacted him and said, would you be interested? And he said he was. He said he was interested in talking to them, but Jack Kent Cooke said, ho, 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 we still have Joe Gibbs under contract for another year. And Gibbs said, well, I haven't collected a penny. And he had that irascible Cooke who said, well, my boy, your paychecks are stacked up on my desk. You can come and claim them if you want, meaning he had to come back and work for the team. Well, he wasn't going to do that, and so they waited a year. Carolina actually waited a full year until Gibbs' contract was up in Washington, and they offered him the job, and he wasn't interested in their plan. They were going to draft a rookie quarterback. Kerry Collins was coming out of Penn State. They wanted to take him first overall, and they wanted Gibbs to develop him. Gibbs said, no. My rookie quarterbacks, I develop them, and I take my time. I'm not going to try and foist a rookie quarterback on in the NFL. So he sat out and didn't come back until 2004 when he came back with the Redskins. So just a little history there, and interesting that this franchise, which is now in its 4th name, is now 92 years old today. You know, I was part of the committee to select the 70 greatest Redskins in the 70th anniversary, which would have been 2002. And the plan was they were going to do this every 5 years. And I think they picked the 75th, but it didn't have as much fanfare. They picked an 80th. I guess they picked a 90th. I don't know. But again, we had 70 great Redskins for the 70th anniversary. They added 5 more for 75, and I think 5 more for 80. But we're going up on 95 in 3 years. All right, a little bit of NBA here. Cooper Flagg will be the grand prize for the Wizards at the end of the season. There's every reason to believe that they'll be, excuse me, even worse than last year when they won 15 games. So they will be very much in the sweepstakes to get Cooper Flagg, who, even before he signed with Duke, people were talking about him as being the number one pick of next year's draft. He's only 17 years old, doesn't turn 18 until December. And they had a practice yesterday, and this is what they do for the Olympic team, where you have them scrimmage against usually NBA players. Occasionally, they'll add a college player. But in the past, when they've done it, they're college players who got some chops. The select team is what they call it. It's usually young NBA players brought into scrimmage, get them ready. And Flagg was the first college player to be part of the select team since Doug McDermott and Marcus Smart were invited in 2013. But that wasn't the same thing. McDermott had played 110 college games for Creighton, was a two-time consensus All-American. Smart was coming off a big freshman year, Big 12 Rookie of the Year at Oklahoma State, so they were proven guys. Cooper Flagg has played exactly 0 college basketball games, still 17 years old, and by all accounts, held his own in this scrimmage that they had. This is Tim Bontemps of ESPN covering it, talking to Kevin Negandhi last night on SportsCenter.
Well, this is a pretty remarkable story, Kevin. You've got Cooper Flagg, who is 17 years old. He doesn't turn 18 until December. And when he was born in 2006, in December 2006, Kevin Durant was in his freshman year at Texas, and LeBron James was in his 4th NBA season. And he was out here in this scrimmage with the select team, going toe-to-toe with those guys, and really dominated the final portions of that scrimmage. I saw our PJ Carlissimo afterward, and he was joking with Matt Painter, one of the select team coaches, that Painter doesn't have Duke on the schedule and will not have them on the schedule now after seeing Cooper Flagg in this game. And I asked Tatum about the way Cooper Flagg played and going to, as you said, his alma mater in Duke. And he said that he looked every bit the part of a guy who fit being out here on the court, despite the fact he's the first college player to be part of the select team since Doug McDermott and Marcus Smart back in 2013. And those guys were already well into their college careers when they were here playing against Team USA. Cooper Flagg hasn't even played in a college basketball game yet. And that's why the executive on hand here wanted to see him play, because he right now is projected by our Jonathan Gavoni as the number one pick in next year's NBA draft.
6'9", Larry Bird size, maybe more athleticism, also knows how to play the game. So, just allow yourself to daydream. And it's hard to imagine the Wizards having that guy. They've had some really excellent players in the past. You may have to go back to Elvin Hayes to find when they had the most elite player. And I don't even know if he was the most elite player in the league. Bradley Beal, very, very good, overpaid, overcontracted. John Wall, number one pick of the draft, good at times, too often injured. But really, they haven't had that. And if you look at the modern era of Washington sports, it's a slam dunk that the greatest team athlete is Alex Ovechkin. There's no question about that. I would say that if you're looking all time, you could probably make a case for Walter Johnson and or Sammy Baugh. Walter Johnson, arguably the greatest pitcher who ever lived, won over 400 games. Sammy Baugh, when they named the greatest professional football player of the first half of the 20th century, it was Sammy Baugh. So, I think those two guys might stand up to Ovechkin, but there's no arguing he's had an unbelievable career. He led the team to a Stanley Cup and will probably wind up being the top goal scorer of all time. But, if you're dreaming, Cooper Flagg might be that guy. He might be on the Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan level, and if that's the case, then the relevancy of this franchise, which is nowhere right now, suddenly moves way up. And we'll get to what Tony and Mike said about dynasties yesterday. You had Steph Curry the other day saying that he believes what Golden State did in winning 4 NBA championships over an 11-year period, there might not be a dynasty like that again. He may be right, but if you have that guy, if you have the great player, you can build around him. And I was told by David Dupree many years ago, look, the team that wins the NBA championship usually has the best player in the league. Michael Jordan certainly proved that. Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, those guys, they were arguably the best player in the league. They won titles. It doesn't always work that way, but, that is a big factor in that. So if they wind up with Cooper Flagg, and again, we don't know what the college year is going to look like. We don't know what he's going to look like at Duke. Every time you step up a level in sports, there's a question as to how dominant you're going to be. But here he is playing against NBA players, having not played a single college game, and he's holding his own and looking really good and looking really comfortable. And if he winds up here, if the ping pong balls drop the right way and the Wizards finish with the worst record, which they are very much in contention to do next season, by the time the 2025-26 season rolls around, we could be wigging out over a guy named Cooper Flagg. And he certainly looked that way yesterday, playing against some of the best players in the world and the best players in the NBA. I mean, it's, that's really a remarkable thing. Not intimidated whatsoever. And you don't usually see that. So keep your fingers crossed. Coming up, we'll get to some baseball. Joe Maddon on a podcast recently with some ideas about making the game better. We'll get to that and a whole lot more. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
I guess we can thank Joe Maddon for Davey Martinez. Martinez was a longtime coach with Maddon at a couple of stops with the Cubs, before that with Tampa. And when it came time to hire a new manager, when they decided not to renew Dusty Baker, thought they should have done it, they brought in Davey. And we didn't know much about Davey Martinez. He'd been a player, a kind of a journeyman player in baseball for about 15 years, played for a whole bunch of different franchises, and was good, not great player, and had waited a long time to become a manager. I think he was over 50 when he came here, or close to it. And, one of the things that was, for me, that was off-putting about him at the beginning was in his first spring training, he brought in camels as if to say to the team, hey, we're going to get over the hump this year. And I was critical of that, and I felt like Davey may have been trying to be somebody he wasn't. That was a Joe Maddon move. Maddon would do those kind of things. And, Davey had learned certain tricks of the trade from him. But I think you'll notice, that goes back to 2018. So we're talking about 6 years ago now, 6.5 years ago when he came in. If you'll notice that he really doesn't operate like that. He's kind of found his own voice, which is what you really need to do. You need to be yourself. And I thought that may have hurt him in his first year. And look, Davey was probably on his way to being fired in the second year when they started off 19-31. In fact, there was reason to believe that he was going to be fired when Mike Rizzo had an on-the-field news conference after that series with the Mets, which was just a disaster coming home Memorial Day weekend. And he got up and he said, no, Davey's our manager. We're sticking with him. They did. They won the World Series, and the rest is history. As for Maddon himself, I'm kind of surprised that he's not managing now. He did finally break that 108-year curse with the Cubs, the Billy Goat curse, as they called it, and he finally got the Cubs to win a World Series. And then he got a big offer from Artie Moreno of the Angels, who pays everybody ridiculous amounts of money. And he got fired there and hasn't managed since. He's been doing some podcasts and making himself visible, and I guess now at his age, about 70 or so, he may not get another job again, but he's got some really good ideas, and I would actually like to see him go into the commissioner's office. I think Joe Torre has that role of advisor right now. I would like to see Joe Maddon go in and do that because he's an innovative guy, and he really had some fun with teams in Tampa that didn't have a big payroll. Yeah, he had some money in Chicago, and he won. And he had a big payroll with the Angels and didn't. So, it can go that way. But this is Maddon on the idea of using the robo-umpires, which I'm in favor of. It works out well in tennis with Questek. You don't have players arguing line calls anymore. It's clear and cut. It's simple. They go to the Questek. They look, and they see, oh, yeah, the ball hit the line or the ball didn't hit the line. It's that simple. And you could do that with balls and strikes, but Maddon says it's a little more complicated than that. So here's the twist that he'd like to see.
I prefer this because I'm not into that. I do like human beings. I like the idea of having the system, but like maybe having like a little earbud in the umpire's ear for when he misses something. And he's alerted to when he misses something so that during the course of the game, he might be able to improve his strike zone based on information. So in other words, if the ball's like 2 inches, 3 inches outside, he calls it a strike. Put him in his little ear, but it's going to say something. No, that was a ball. That was a strike. So I like that. I like some kind of information going to the umpire during the game. Very subtle. Nobody else knows about it. And this guy needs to start making adjustments based on what he's hearing in his earbud. But I don't like anything. Okay, I do like the ability to reverse really horrible calls. I do agree with that. So that's a good thing. But overall, man, I listen. Tech's taken over the world, man. I'm not into that. I mean, I know a lot of people are. I like heartbeats. I like human beings. I like to be augmented with what we're doing, but not taken over by it.
Yeah, well, maybe not. And maybe that's a good idea. Maybe you could have that little tweak. And a home plate umpire, you're still going to need him anyway because of plays of the plate and things like that. So, yeah, why not? Why not do that? But why not explore it? Why not go to that? Why not have, these different strike zones that different umpires have eliminated and make it pretty much standard, the way it's supposed to be? It's between the chest and the knees. That's where the ball is supposed to go. If it goes there, it's a strike. If not, it's a ball. So that's one Maddon idea, how to deal with that. The other is the developmental process of players. And, I'm not happy about seeing a pitcher come out of a game when he's got a no-hitter going. We have a pitcher, throwing like Jake Irvin did on the 4th of July. He's given up one hit over 8 innings, can't even complete the game. And so we're looking at, developing pitchers. And with all the babying of the pitchers that they do, it hasn't cut down on injuries. The Orioles have 3 starting pitchers out for the year with elbow injuries. That's what this has brought. So this is Maddon on the idea of developing players and also using, and it's not just, and there's more to it than just the development of the players, it's also the development of winners. And they've got this in basketball too. You've heard basketball coaches complain about the AAU, where they know that they're going to get 3 games in a day, so it's not as important about winning as it is their stats. And it used to be like on the playground, if your team lost, you were going to have to sit for an hour to get your chance to play in a game again. So this is Maddon on that and how to develop a different level of player rather than the way they're doing it now.
Well, I mean, listen, the developmental process you don't have to be a cookie cutter and follow everybody else. You have to, like I said, I believe everybody wants to be like everybody else in today's world, in today's game. I really believe in the individuality of the group. You need to hire your instructors, your best instructors. I think part of the problem is that the game's not being passed down from generation to generation right now by actually former players or former coaches, guys that have been there, done that, guys that are proven great instructors, teachers. A lot of the value coaches these days are coming from places, Driveline and things of that nature. And all of a sudden, this is considered the way to pass the game along. And these are today's gurus. I'm here to tell you, man, if I'm starting a group tomorrow, definitely got Larry Bow in that group. Absolutely. I don't care how old Larry Bow is. Yeah, and people like that. We need people to pass the game down, to have it played properly. Guys have to be told when they're screwing up, doing things wrong. And I think you could watch a lot of games today, and I keep getting queried about, did you see how sloppy the play was? Now, listen, you could have sloppy play with the best instructors in the world. I'm not arguing that. But the game has devolved into the point where there's a brand. It's like everybody's after their own brand and a show me kind of a thing, as opposed to playing this team concept that's individualized by the Dodgers or the Cardinals or the Pirates of the past, which I loved. And I thought the Angels in the 90s and early 2000s, we had an identity. I thought the Rays, when we got to the Rays, we established an identity. Those are the kind of things that's never talked about anymore. It's all based on analytical data and a sameness. Everybody wants a sameness when it comes down to draft. And furthermore, there are no minor leagues anymore. That's been so watered down. I'm here to tell you, man, under these circumstances, I'd never get an opportunity to eventually do what I did, because I would have never been placed in a minor league system for the period of time to get the kind of experience I needed to establish becoming a coach, manager, et cetera. So none of that stuff's ever discussed, but that to me, that bothers me. I mean, and if you want to grow fan bases, you're taking so many teams away from cities and leagues, and that was such a big part of our fabric. And I missed that. I think I probably missed more than people talk about, but all those things matter. All those things count.
Okay, well then how do you balance that, Joe? Because you were famously known for changing things, dress codes, little league days, whatever you used to call them. How do you manage that, though? How do you balance that in today's game? Because, like you said, everyone is about their image and their whatever you want to call it. But then you also have to try to do a team because it starts. Listen, I have a 17-year-old. Kratz has a 17-year-old. Those showcases, those events, a lot of times are about, hey, how far can I hit it? How hard can I throw? If we lose, who cares? I got 2 hits. So how do you balance that when you get to the major league level?
I'm with you, man. I've talked about that. Everybody wants to be best in show. It's always about being best in show. Part of it, I live in Hazleton, Pennsylvania. I'm looking out my window right now, and I can look up there, and there's Wilkes-Barre. I can look over there, there's Berwick. Bloomsburg is down the street right there. Freeland's over there on top of the hill. Nobody plays locally, and nobody plays for their city or their team or their locale anymore. It's always about these events, these showcase events that you pay to play, you travel, and it's not necessarily about team and winning anymore. It's about me, and we're promoting that. That's part of the fabric anymore. I would love, I've talked about people locally with this, to establish a league that you then get people to stay here. I played for the Scranton Red Sox for a year in the ACBL. 2 years I spent with them up in Scranton, and I love playing for the Scranton Red Sox. But there's none of this loyalty. Loyalty's really become an archaic term, and I would just love to see more of that. But you're not going to put the genie back in the bottle. You're just going to see bigger and bigger showcases. And within these showcases, you're promoting yourself and not the team or the group. And there's nothing you can do about it. That's just the way it is. But I think that's part of what we're seeing. And the issue, the problem you're talking about, we've created. I think it's been our mistake. And I miss all the Babe Ruth and American Legion and all the stuff we played in this area. And you try to beat your neighbors. It was great. It was a great rivalry. And that's where teamwork comes in.
A kind of forgotten time in all sports, not just baseball. And, same thing with the AAU basketball that Maddon is talking about with baseball. Now, he is a quirky guy. He's got a lot of interests. He used to go down to spring training and stay in a Winnebago. And he's a big wine connoisseur. So this is the last thing I'm going to play from this podcast that he did. But it's about being ejected from a game and whether he went for the wine bottle or for something stronger. Here's Joe Maddon.
There was a time in Washington I got ejected when Davey Johnson challenged Joe Peralta with having sticky stuff on his fingers. Now, he just pitched for them the year before, so they knew everything about him. So all of a sudden they're going to be smart, challenge him. They kick him out of the game, and I was incensed. I was over by their dugout, all this kind of stuff. So Rosie's the clubby. I walk in. I said, Rosie, give me a shot. I wanted a shot at that point. I needed to settle down. He says, we're not permitted to have alcohol in the clubhouse. And I said, what about everybody in the stands? And furthermore, these guys are 21 and older. All these guys, they're old enough to vote. They're old enough to serve in the war. And you tell me they can't have a drink after the game? The next day I had like a bottle of Jack and a bottle of Crown in my locker, big bottles the next day. So yes, there's times it requires Crown, and there's other times just a good glass of wine.
Yeah. There was a time when every manager in baseball had a bottle in his desk, and maybe things have changed now with the way the interviews take place. Every time because these things were not videoed before. Every time you see a pre or a post game interview with Davey Martinez, he's always wearing a full uniform, right? And back in the day, you didn't have TV cameras in there, so you would see this. And I would, in my days of doing post game radio stuff, I would go into the manager's office. Sometimes he'd be sitting there buck naked, and eating and smoking. And would conduct the interviews. Well, as women became more and more a part of the process, as reporters, that changed. But sometimes they'd still be sitting there in their underwear, talking to us. And so the bottle of booze not being there now, it was a road game for him. It was here. I guess that's when he was managing Tampa, and they were playing here. And I do remember that. There was a big dust-up about that. And, he was using the sticky stuff, which they've now cracked down on. You see the pitchers checked after every inning and so forth. But some stories there from Joe Maddon, who I think is an incredibly smart guy, and they ought to hire him in baseball. They ought to bring him into the commissioner's office because he's got young ideas. He's not young, but he's a little bit younger than Torrey, who I think is in his 80s by now. and I think would be a great addition to Major League Baseball. Speaking of baseball, boy, it's only been a week now since James Wood came up, and so far so good. Now he went 0 for 4 yesterday, which lowered his average to 276, but nobody really hit yesterday for the Nats. Left a bunch of guys on base, and they lost 6-0 to the Cardinals. But there's a lot of ink being spilled about James Wood. There's a big front page story in the Post today about how it's been really cool since he's back home, grew up in Albany, so he's got all these family members that get to go to the game. Also, when he made his debut, his basketball coach, whose name is Behan, he was the coach at St. John's when he played basketball there, and his name's Pat Behan, and sadly he's suffering from ALS. He's in a wheelchair, he's on a ventilator, and communicates with, I guess, an eye gaze now. But he was there for the first game, which, wouldn't have happened if he had stayed in San Diego unless, he played a game here. But now it's every night. The family can go out to the games, and that's a really cool part of things. And sometimes it's nerve-wracking to be playing in your hometown, but he seems to have handled it very well. The story in the Post says Wood has been calm and prepared in the early days of his career. His teammates say spends a lot of time on his iPad. At 6'7", he's taller than anyone that they have played with. He doesn't dominate conversations, but they say the only time they have sensed any anxiety is when he overthrew a teammate while warming up before his debut, though Young attributed that in part to a difference in height he threw downhill. It's a show for them. Young said some of the opposing pitchers have seemed intimidated. This teammate Young has said he intimidated by Wood, nibbling at the edge of the plate. They call him El Big Man, the foreign players, while a handful of young players call Vargas LOG, asked manager Davey Martinez for the lineup card after Wood's debut. So they're kind of, players are sort of enamored with playing with him right now. The story in SI.com today about Wood says that he arrived at the national system as perhaps the least heralded member of an enormous prospect haul for outfielder Juan Soto that included shortstop C.J. Abrams and pitchers Mackenzie Gore and Robert Hassel III. At the time of the trade, Wood was 19, viewed largely as a toolsy project with eye-catching physical traits, but also holes in his swing and a physical profile that portended a possible slide down the defensive spectrum at some point from center field to first base. He's looked good in the outfield. He may have found a home in left field and has been batting third, which might be the best spot for him. They said he would have come up earlier had he not suffered a hamstring injury in late May. Might have made his debut a few weeks ago. But by Sunday, Wood had reached base 14 times, most of any Nationals player ever in his first 7 career games. He struck out 7 times compared to 6 walks over 31 plate appearances, and even flashed some leather playing out of position in left field. I guess he's been playing center field in the minor leagues. Look, you know how we may look at this down the road. We may look at this in the same way that we looked at the Juan Soto situation, in that Bryce Harper was the star. I mean, Bryce Harper is totally different than Wood. He was on the cover of Sports Illustrated when he was in high school. Everybody knew he was going to be the number 1 pick of the draft, and then he comes up in 2012 and is a great player for them, and had talked about wanting to spend his entire career with the Nationals. He liked it here. He wanted to do that, and they elected not to re-sign him. They made him an offer of $300 million, and they said, we expect you to get more. So, go ahead, but, we're making you a reasonable offer. We understand, but you're not likely to stay here. It's okay. And his agent, Scott Boras, huffed and puffed and finally got him over to $325 million so he could pass Giancarlo Stanton as the highest paid player of all time at that point, which was $320, got him to $325 million. And sign with the Phillies. And the Nats were okay with that because they had Juan Soto. Well, they eventually had to trade Soto, and they get a player here. I mean, it's early, but if James Wood is 80% as good as Soto, and you have Mackenzie Gore, and maybe Hassel develops into something, and C.J. Abrams is already an all-star, that's a hell of a trade, right? I mean, you almost think you'd make that trade most of the time, yes, you've got a generational player in Soto. Soto looks like a surefire Hall of Famer right now, and he's already accomplished a lot in his career. He was a key player in them winning the World Series in 2019. But in Mike Rizzo, we trust. And, we got Wood now, who's, starting to get the attention of everybody in baseball after only a week playing in the major leagues. He's, just a piece of that. And if you get, 5 players out of it and 4 develop into regulars for you and, including a pitcher, which is hard to find. Gore is, not Cy Young quality yet, but maybe will be someday. That's a hell of a trade. And we look at it a lot differently than we did when we said, oh, my God, how can you get rid of Juan Soto? And, that's baseball. And good for Mike Rizzo for operating within the constraints of what they have. Not every franchise would have done that. They might have said, well, that's fine. We'll wait till Soto gets to free agency. Now, the number could be 6. He could get over $600 million, certainly over $500 million. He turned down $440 to stay here. All right, coming up, Novak Djokovic last night won. But what you're going to hear is one of the testiest post-match interviews that you will ever hear. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
So 31 years ago, the Bullets, who were really bad at that time, pretty relevant as a franchise, playing at the old Capitol Center, drafted Tom Gugliotta out of North Carolina State. And the fans used to yell, Googs! But there was plenty to boo about with the Bullets at that time. So Googs became confused with booze. And it didn't last long because after one season plus, he was traded to the Golden State Warriors in the Chris Webber trade. And that's when we thought, oh, happy days are here again. And didn't really work out that way. Chris Webber coming in, he'd been the number 1 pick of the draft. Juwan Howard, his college teammate, he had been drafted the following year by the Bullets. He was on the roster, but he was not signed in the early part of the season. They didn't have a rookie salary cap in those days, so salaries weren't slotted, and he had turned down a deal because he, felt it was under market value. He had representation that said, no, we're not going to do that. And so anyway, they worked it all out, and now we're going to have the next generation of Hayes and Unseld. We're going to have the 2 guys who are the key players on the Fab Five, along with Jalen Rose, who was also a first-round pick. But these were the 2 big men. Big men were valued in those days, so Howard and Weber were going to lead the team to great heights. Didn't quite work out that way, but that was the end of Tom Gugliotta. Went on to a nice career, had a really nice career in the NBA. So last night at Wimbledon, you had Novak Djokovic, who is the all-time winner in Grand Slams. He's won 24 of them, and you could probably make the case he's the greatest tennis player of all time. Certainly he's the greatest winner on majors. He was playing a 15th seed named Holger Rune, R-U-N-E, Holger Rune. And, wasn't a close match. Djokovic won in straight sets, 6-3, 6-4, 6-2. Took over just 2 hours. And then he conducts the post-match interview. And I guess he felt like when the fans were yelling Rune, that they were booing him. He didn't understand that. Or he did understand it, but decided to flip it in a way that makes him seem a little bit petulant here. So this is how the post-match interview went after his straight sets win over Holger Rune.
The crowd in particular seemed very into this match, and obviously Holger had lots of support. You seem to enjoy your interaction with them as well?
Well, to all the fans that have respect and that stayed here tonight, thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate it. Appreciate it. And to all those people that have chosen to disrespect the player, in this case me, have a good night. Good night, good night. Very good night. Yeah.
I'm hoping that they were just commenting on Rune and that they weren't disrespecting you.
They were. I don't accept it. No. I know they were cheering for Rune, but that's an excuse to also boo. Listen. I've been on the tour for more than 20 years, so trust me, I know all the tricks. I know how it works. It's fine. It's okay. I focus on the respectful people that have respect, that pay the ticket to come and watch tonight, and love tennis, and appreciate the players and the effort that the players put in here. I played in much more hostile environment, trust me. You guys can't touch me.
And the one thing everybody appreciates, as you say, is the effort that you put in. And the effort that you've put in to come back at Wimbledon after the knee surgery and to produce a performance like this. Are we looking at a Novak Djokovic who is just getting better and better with each passing day now? You're looking good. You must be feeling great.
Yeah, I'm feeling great on the court. So let's take it day by day. There's always something to work on in the off days. I'll hit the practice courts tomorrow, speak with my team, analyze this match, and obviously get ready for next one.
A 15th quarterfinal here at Wimbledon for you, which is incredible in itself. And you're up against Alex de Minaur. How you feel about that?
I'm feeling good. I played Alex a couple of times this year on different surfaces. I guess this is the first time we face each other on the grass. He's one of the quickest, if not the quickest player on the tour. So, I'm going to have to do a lot of running. I'm enjoying my running still at 37, so I'm okay. I look forward to it.
It's very impressive. Congratulations, Novak Djokovic.
Yeah, there's some booze mixed in there at the end. He was being cheered at the beginning of that interview, and he flipped it in a way that he became very dislikable there. He didn't have to do that. And the rude was rude. I don't think he would have gotten much booing. Doesn't seem like that was the case, but he got all sensitive about it. And even at the end of the match, took his racket and, pretended like it was a violin to, say to the crowd, oh, gee, I'm sorry that your guy has made it to the quarterfinals for the 15th time at Wimbledon. Get over that. He was also asked at the news conference after he finished up with that interview about the rowdy behavior at Wimbledon. He says, look, I don't know what Wimbledon can really do about it. I mean, in those particular moments when it happens, the crowd paid their tickets. They have the right to cheer the way they want to cheer. It's absolutely something they choose, or how they behave or how they choose to support the players, really up to them. You could argue maybe a chair umpire or whoever could step in certain moments and calm them down, but there's not much you could do. You're not going to take out the whole section of the crowd or stadium because they're misbehaving or showing disrespect. Again, they were saying rune, not boo. I don't know why he flipped it that way. He's at the stage of his career where he could be beloved. Now, he is always, he's always been a little bit prickly and villainous and missed some chances to win other Grand Slams because he was not vaccinated. He had one where he hit a ball in anger and it hit a chair umpire and he got disqualified. Those are things that have kept him at 24. Maybe he could be at 26 or even 27 by now and put some greater distance between himself and, I guess it's Roger Federer now who's in second place. So, what is the need for that? And what is the need for this? This is something else. If you don't know, the Commanders still have a player on the roster by the name of Dax Milne. He didn't play last year because of an injury, but he's in the fourth year of a rookie deal. He has not, as far as I know, been released. But he's in the center of something really bizarre right now. He at one time was the best friend of Zach Wilson. They played together at BYU. Zach Wilson had a girlfriend, and I don't know if they were engaged yet, but they had broken up. Her name was Abby Gill, Abbeygile, Abby Gill, and she broke up with Zach Wilson. Now, the breakup was really nasty. They'd been high school sweethearts, split in 2022. Then it had come out that she had moved on to Milne. And they had been friends and roommates at BYU. That kind of broke up the friendship, but that was only the beginning. Social media users called Gill a homie hopper when it was revealed that she was dating Milne, the best friend. In response, she wrote on an Instagram post that Zach Wilson, let's see if you can follow this, that her now ex-boyfriend, Zach Wilson, was, quote, sleeping with his mom's best friend. That's a real homie hopper. She later deleted that, but it got out there in the ether that, what? Wait, Zach Wilson is sleeping with his mom's best friend, who is presumably the same age that she is, not the age that Zach Wilson is. That kind of went away. Wilson has never addressed that. He flamed out with the Jets. He's now with the Broncos, trying to save his career. Milne, now still property of the Commanders, is, I don't know if, I guess they're engaged now, right? They are now engaged. Got engaged during a vacation in Italy. That they are now going to be a couple. And Zach Wilson has she's now a fiance, model, Nicolette Delano. So, again, follow along here. College roommates, best friends, both NFL players. Zach Wilson, the higher profile player, breaks up with his girlfriend after it's revealed that she's now dating his best friend. She fires back when she's accused of being a, quote, homie hopper, that, the now ex, Zach Wilson, is sleeping with his own mom's best friend. What a tangled web of mishigas you got going on here. Woo! This is crazy. Now, I don't know if this will become something that, because I don't know if Zach Milne is still around, or Dax Milne is still around for the Commanders, but I think he's on the team. So anyway, both of them look like they have beautiful fiancés here, and maybe it works out well for both of them, but it has broken up a friendship, a very big friendship. Now, just because she had broken up, I wonder about that. If someone had broken up with me and then was dating my best friend, I don't know if I necessarily dislike that. Maybe I had something to do with the breakup. I don't know. This is beyond my pay grade. But all the twists and turns of this, with the mom's best friend and the ex and the best friend and the best friend's girlfriend, oy gewalt. What a head-spinning story this is. Coming up, what we do, and especially what ESPN does at this time of year, their go-to, got nothing going on? Go to the Lakers, go to the Cowboys. And we got two looks at that, one from Chris Mannix and the other from Dan Graziano. He looks at the Cowboys and... Dak Prescott was wearing a walking boot during his vacation. Oy gewalt. Stay with us. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Okay, so the Lakers won a championship in the bubble in 2020, 4 years ago. Cowboys haven't won a Super Bowl since 1996, the 1995 season. We're almost 30 years removed from their last championship. Yet... the two teams just dominate the news. Cowboys, I guess, are America's team. When they're on TV, they draw bigger numbers than anybody. They almost have the Caitlin Clark effect on the NFL. Not that they need it, since they're drawing big numbers for just about everybody. But when the Cowboys are on, eyeballs are on the set. And the Lakers, they're always making news. I think LeBron has a lot to do with it. And now you've got the added story of Bronny. LeBron James Jr., he's played one summer league game for them. He was like 2 of 8 from the field or something like that. And he didn't play in the second game because of a knee injury. I don't know what his status is moving forward in the summer league, but he's got himself a nice contract. He was the 55th pick of the draft. He would not have been drafted if he were not LeBron James' son, and he certainly wouldn't have gone to the Lakers. But that's where he is. That's where we stand. And where is this going? This is, again, Chris Mannix of SI.com on with Rich Eisen on the future of Bronny.
The question that I have about Bronny, and that I'll wonder as his career moves forward, was it smart for him and his team to strategically place him in L.A.? Remember, they only worked out for the Phoenix Suns and the L.A. Lakers. Bob Myers, the former Warriors general manager, was on television during the draft saying that Rich Paul, the agent, for Bronny James was calling teams saying, do not draft him. If you do, he's going to go to Australia. So they believed, which I don't even know if that would even happen, but they believed that the best place for him was in Los Angeles, playing for the Lakers and playing with his father. Certainly there are reasons that would be a good thing, but there are also reasons that getting the hell out of there and playing like Oklahoma City or Milwaukee or Orlando make just as much sense. Get out of the fishbowl that's going to exist in LA. Because even if Bronny spends his entire year playing for the South Bay Lakers, the median scrutiny is still going to be intense. Still going to be a lot of people watching. And the second every time he's in that Laker locker room, people are going to be in there watching him when he's on the floor with his dad, watching him. I mean, he can do whatever he wants. And clearly they thought this was the right thing to do. But I wonder if playing in a far-flung, far-away market would have been a better call.
I don't know. I mean, and you may be right, but my opinion is that's their family decision. Yeah. Like I don't know. And is it even if it is our business to even wonder about it? Because what do you think? LeBron sitting down and saying, "Bronny, this has been decided for you."
No, God,
you know what I mean.
No.
So the kid wants to play with his dad, maybe, and he's grown up. LeBron's kid. He's probably used to fish bowls. He's probably used to all that, and if he's sick and tired of it, wouldn't he speak up and say, "Dad, it is a dream." But, hopefully maybe you play 4 or 5 more years.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to go start off on my own. Then Rich Paul would be telling teams, outside. Rich Paul would probably saying to Bronny, where do you want to go? Because we'll pull the Australia gambit to send you there too. I don't know. Like, what's wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with it.
Right.
I'm only looking at this specifically as Bronny, the basketball player.
Sure.
Like, what is the best situation for his development? And you make a great point that he has been in a fishbowl his entire life. Yeah. And I thought LeBron said something really astute recently, like how many kids that grew up with the advantages that Bronny did turned out to be like it, had the kind of work ethic you needed to have to become an NBA player.
Right.
Like, and he's not like blessed with the same kind of physique that his dad is. He's 6'2", right? He is an average size for a basketball player. So he had to work to get to the level where he'd be even considered to be an NBA draftee. So I give him a ton of credit for that. I just wonder, as you're trying to just simply focus on basketball,
right,
can you do that in this type of environment? That's my only question about this going in.
Well, as far as him going to another team, realistically, he's not an NBA player. He's just not. Maybe he would be if he stayed another 2 or 3 years in college, but he's averaged less than 5 points a game at USC. Now, some of that was because he had the terrible heart incident prior to the season. He actually had to be revived, and fortunately they had a defibrillator there to do that. He had heart surgery. Maybe he's still coming around from that, but he was a good high school player. He was highly recruited. His last name and his first name, really, his full first name, didn't hurt him in that regard. But, as far as Manick saying he should have played with another team, what other team was going to take him? And the only thing that was going to happen as they got closer to number 55 in the draft was, would another team take him and use him like as ransom, because they knew that the Lakers would want him. Like, what are you going to give us? Can you give us a future first rounder if you want him? Well, no, they're not going to do that. So that's why Rich Paul is telling teams, we're going to go to Australia if we don't like where he goes. Well, I don't think that would have happened. And maybe going to Australia might have been the best thing for him. But he's there with the Lakers. I agree that he's used to being in the fishbowl. He understood what he was going against. I also was very impressed with his news conferences. The guy's definitely got his head on straight. But this is going to be a really tough situation, and he's going to be on the Lakers. It's a guaranteed contract, and I don't think it's going to be two-way. Maybe he does go down and play in the G League for a while. And you don't. The other problem with the NBA is you don't practice that much because you're playing so many games. He needs to get better, and even if he gets better, is he ultimately an NBA player, or is he just LeBron's son? And what LeBron wants, LeBron gets. LeBron clearly wanted to play with him. He said so. And then he sort of backed away from that as we were getting closer to the draft. Well, maybe we don't have to play together. Bronny was saying, I didn't go to the NBA to play with my dad. Oh, okay. Really? Well, if that was the case, you probably should have stayed in school and seasoned yourself a little bit more. But it is what it is, and be interesting to watch what happens next. Now, we move to the other go-to topic on ESPN when things are slow, the Dallas Cowboys. What happens with the Dallas Cowboys? Dak Prescott is going into the last year of his contract, hasn't gotten an extension. Will they play it out, put him back on the franchise tag, which they've done before, or will they give him a long-term deal? There's also this latest little wrinkle. He was seen on vacation wearing a walking boot. What in God's name does that mean? This is Dan Graziano, covers the NFL for ESPN on the morning show. Actually, this was on Greenberg yesterday with various fill-in hosts. I don't know who they are, but this is yesterday on Mike Greenberg's show. Dan Graziano on Dak Prescott and the walking boot on vacation.
It's a big story if we're sitting here in 3 weeks and they're reporting to camp in Oxnard and it's still an issue, right? Like if he's in a boot or if he's limited in practice. Right now, so he broke his ankle in 2020, as we all remember, and I think the situation is that it aggravates him from time to time. It has not affected his performance on the field in the last 3 seasons, and that's what he and the Cowboys are standing on at this point in talking about how it's not a concern. But, it's 3 weeks out. So, if he needs to wear a walking boot to get around on vacation because his ankle's bothering him and he wants to make sure that it's not in bad shape 3 weeks from now, then good. Good for him for managing it, if that's what it is. And that's what we're being told so far. So if we're being lied to, then we're all going to find out together in about 3 weeks. And then it'll be a big story. So, I as a sports writer a long time ago, was told never underplay an injury because the team always will. But right now, the story's believable. We'll see if it holds up come training camp.
Dan Graziano, ESPN NFL Insider, here with us on Greeny. I'm Jonathan Zaslow. He's Randy Scott in for Greeny today. So as you mentioned there, it's rather unprecedented that Dak Prescott could wind up hitting free agency in a year from now, unrestricted. He's got the no tag clause in the contract. Dan, what did the Cowboys expect when they worked this last deal and they allowed the clause that he cannot be tagged again and he would hit unrestricted free agency? Are the Cowboys surprised that we're in this place now? What did they expect by allowing that?
Jonathan, I think that's one of the greatest questions you can ask about the Cowboys right now. What did they expect? I think the answer to that question lies in the fact that Jerry Jones, who's owned the Cowboys for more than 30 years, has had a long track record of being able to get the deal done. He has been able to sell guys in the past on, hey, no state income tax. Hey, if you're really a Cowboy lifer, that there's a lot that comes with that. I mean, and he's right to some extent, right? Look how many former Dallas Cowboy quarterbacks have the most prominent broadcasting jobs, right? He's got a case to make. But I also think there's a chance that there's been a turn in the way players view these things that maybe Jerry and the Cowboys haven't kept up with. And I think it's possible that an argument that might have worked in the past on, a Troy Aikman or a Tony Romo or a Michael Irvin, like the superstars with which he's done deals in the past, I think it's possible that the player of 2024 is less inclined to sort of buy it, right? And I think the players in this day and age have a better sense of what their value is, the power that they actually have in the contract negotiations, and it's conceivable that all the old tricks that Jerry used to use to try and get these major deals done aren't necessarily working anymore, and that would be reflected in the situation with Dak, where a couple of years, 4 or 5 years ago, they were trying to get the deal done. He held firm, and he got this killer deal. And it seems like he's in a position, if he wants to do it again. And that's obviously put the team in a difficult spot, especially considering they have other big deals to do in the meantime. So, I think what did they expect? I think the answer to that may well be that they expected it would be okay because it always has been for them. And they're in an era now where that's not automatically true anymore.
There's even some yak about Jerry Jones selling the Cowboys. I don't think that'll happen, but if it happens, you're talking, I think, north of $10 billion. We'll see. But I just don't see it. Jerry's ego it's fueled by running the Dallas Cowboys, his dream. And, it's a hell of a story. He mortgaged everything he had to buy the team for $189 million and now owns this booming industry, being a part of a booming industry with the most visible franchise. The other go-to, and this has been kind of a lull, but they'll get back to it soon enough when the veterans report to training camp. We had a big hubbub when Aaron Rodgers missed minicamp. Apparently he was in Egypt. He had planned the trip and paid a $100,000 fine not to show up for minicamp, whatever that's worth. But that'll rear its head pretty soon again. And it's just kind of assumed, and that, and I don't know why, just because maybe it's because it's the Jets and because it's Aaron Rodgers. He only played 4 plays last year, tore his Achilles, and sat out the rest of the season. That when he steps back on the field, he's going to be the Aaron Rodgers of 3 years ago when he was the MVP of the league. Really? Well, he's 40 years old. Warren Moon is a Hall of Fame quarterback, played past his 40th birthday, but at the end, he was a backup. He was a backup with Kansas City, Minnesota, a couple of teams. He played till he was about 42, 43 years old. And he knows how age catches up with you, especially with a big injury like an Achilles tear. And this was Moon yesterday on ESPN saying, hey, all those of you who think that the Jets are now going to cruise into the playoffs and into the Super Bowl with a really healthy Aaron Rodgers, not so fast.
We haven't seen many quarterbacks coming off of a Achilles tendon injury at this age, and how they've been able to react to that. You lose a lot of your mobility as you get older, as it is, just because of age and just stress on your body. But now all of a sudden you're coming off of this ACL. Not ACL, his Achilles. You just don't know how he's going to react to that. Is he going to have those quick twitch movements that he's going to need in the pocket? And one of those quick twitch movements that could make that Achilles, maybe pop again, or it could cause another problem in his calf muscle. It could create other problems in his legs. So you just don't know how his body's going to react to this when he gets into full-time competition. Right now, he's moving around very well from all the different video that I've seen on him and different things like that. It seems like he's throwing the ball pretty well. But until he gets out there in live competition and really has to make those quick movements that you have to make in game-type situations, we kind of really don't know what we're going to get out of Aaron Rodgers. One of the things that made him special was his ability to avoid contact in the pocket and be able to move and get outside the pocket and create plays. Let's see if he can still do that again after this injury. So that's what I'm going to be looking for, to see how his body responds to that injury.
I would also give you the story of Junior Gillette, who was with the Redskins some years ago. He had been cut by the Saints because of a domestic incident, which at that time this organization liked to ignore. And he got signed to a contract, tore his Achilles, missed the season, rehabbed, getting ready for the following season, tore the other Achilles. You don't wish that on Aaron Rodgers, but at age 40, as Moon warns, it's not necessarily a slam dunk that he comes back and he's as good as he's ever been. And Rodgers will tell you that, and they're putting out, as they say, the video that I love that, when guys run around in shorts and T-shirts and people claim, oh, wow, look at him. Doesn't he look great? We'll have to see. So anyway, that's that. That does it for me. Be here the rest of the week. Be here all week. Ha, ha, ha. And Tony is off today. Mike Callow's in for him. And I will see you back here tomorrow at 9 a.m.